questions we get. Stanley Biggs is our namesake for the clothing brand, and Stanley Biggs was actually a man. He was born in 1919, and when the war came around, the Second World War came around, he joined up and he was part of the Royal Army Medical Corps as a medical orderly, and he was then attached to and became part of the airborne division that went over to the bridges over in, or the bridge over in Arnhem in the Netherlands, and he was part of the armada that went over on the 17th of September 1944, and it was during the battle that Stanley, along with his comrades in 181 Field Ambulance, operated it, and it was quite a disastrous battle in terms of the overall result. The British didn't capture the bridge for the length of time that was needed for the troops going up Hell's Highway. They couldn't meet in time. But Stanley and his, many other units, they didn't actually get to Arnhem. They got caught up in all the fighting around the outskirts, and in particular in a town called Oosterbeek. And it was in Oosterbeek, in certain buildings, so many of them were hotels, that Stanley, as part of the surgical unit, or one of the surgical teams in 181, he operated out of. So he didn't fight, he was a non-combatant, and they would have had to deal with the increasing number of casualties as the battle that should have happened for 2 to 3 days went into its 9th day. And because he was a medical orderly as well, Stan was actually constantly working around the clock with the other members of the surgical team. There's actually 2 surgical teams, so one would have worked while the other one rested, and so on and so forth. I mentioned about there was hotels in Oosterbeek where they operated out of, and one of those was called the Tafelberg, and that's where Stan ended up. And on the 25th of September, which was the last day of the battle as well, a stray artillery shell actually fired from the other side of the river by 30 Corps landed in the Tafelberg and went off, killing Stan and also another nurse, a Dutch nurse, instantly. So Stan actually didn't survive the battle. Now about 15 to 20 years ago, I went and visited Oosterbeek for the first time and visited the cemetery at Oosterbeek, which is where Stan is buried. And Biggs is one of my family names. My great-grandmother was a Biggs. And it was in visiting for the first time, I was a little overwhelmed by the battle, the closeness of it, the vastness of it, and then also the sheer number of units that were operational in such a small area. I decided to focus on my namesakes. So I looked up Biggs, Bennett, Penny, and then Plant. And to my astonishment, there was a grave for each one. So I then went off, started researching Stan and his unit, and I discovered photographs, videos, first-hand accounts, all relating to Stan. And it was over the following decade or so that we would return to Arnhem. It's a very special place for me and my husband. And we would every year go and visit every grave of all of my namesakes, Stan included. So when it came to creating the brand, I created the brand, I had an idea of what I wanted to do, but I had no name for the company, and I didn't want to opt for using my own personal name. I wanted to use another name that had more resonance to it, and we just kept going around in circles for a number of weeks, and I settled on the fact that actually Stanley Biggs sounds perfect. It rolls off the tongue, it's memorable, it's British, and it has all of the stories, telling a story about one particular man, but also all of the other men and women that were involved in the battle, you know, Dutch and British, Polish, they all fought there, and the Germans of course as well. So that is who Stan was, and it's actually last year, the end of last year, tail end of it, that the family of Stanley Biggs got in touch, and I'm now delighted to say that we have first-hand information about Stan and his brother, who is very close to, and we have some more photographs of Stan as well. And we've been able to share a lot more information about his last few days with his family, and it's obviously given them a bit of closure as well, and a bit more insight into the man that they're related to. So yeah, so it's Stanley Biggs was a person, and it carries that in everything that we do. Every item has his name in, and it's something that, you know, I like the saying that there's a Rudyard Kipling, you know, sort of a man dies twice, first when he dies, and then the last time his name is spoken. And it's nice really in some ways to know that Stan's name is never going to be forgotten, because it will always be carried in years to come in the items of clothing that we create and everything that we do. And we're now in Bassingham.